pressing the button now. It'll be about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
We don't have to wear our masks for this, do we?
No.
Just
I don't know. I
kidding.
think you're too close, so that's going to be a problem.
Good to have it, take it off.
We'll
Finally.
ask, just because of the participants, if you don't mind, just if you're not speaking, just put your mic on silent or whatever, and we'll just turn it on when you go to speak, just so we don't get feedback, please. Thanks.
And then for my department heads too, if you want to turn off your videos as well, just to save bandwidth, that'd be great. And Mr. Chair, we are live.
We are live. Okay. Let's call the meeting to order then. Kawarthas Halliburton Source Protection Authority meeting number 1 for the year, Thursday, March 25th. Can I get a motion, please, for the adoption of the agenda? Moved by Pat Dunn, seconded by Ron Windover. Anyone opposed to that motion? We'll consider that motion passed. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest in anything on today's agenda? Seeing none. Can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes from last year, May 28th, 2020? Ted Smith, seconded by Ron Hooper. Anyone opposed to the receiving and adopting the minutes? We'll consider that passed. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes. I see here it says letters to the ministry sent, a response is being worked on. Mark, do you want to just, what does that mean?
Yep. So there was a, thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a conversation at the last meeting of the Kawarthas Halliburton Source Protection Authority, where we had invited members of the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, Parks, and of OMAFRA to talk about non-agricultural source material. And so this stemmed from a concern that was brought forward by our director, Pam Saini. And so there was a lot of good discussion on that. We did put forward some recommendations to the ministries for some consideration on actions. And so I've been in contact with those ministries. They've indicated that they have received the letter. They're working on a response. They haven't sent the response quite yet, but they are aware of the need to respond to that. And some good news, I would say, as well, from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, Parks, is some of the efforts that they've been working on have actually solved some of the recommendations that we put forward. So there's some good news on that front, and certainly look forward to a response from those ministries.
Great, thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move down to item 5, which is an update on Trent Conservation Coalition Source Protection Committee activities. I believe Jenna is gonna run through that. You want to give us an overview on that report before we'll see if there's any questions, Jenna, and then we'll receive it. Thanks.
Great, sounds good. So through you, Mr. Chair, there've been a few meetings. We're starting to have them more frequently now of the Source Protection Committee. Since our last meeting of the Source Protection Authority Board of Directors, the committee met on July 23rd, October 28th of 2020, and also January 27th of 2021. So there's been a lot of progress made in the program over the last almost year. Firstly, we wanted to discuss some of the impacts that COVID-19 pandemic has had on the program, which I'm sure all of you are very familiar with in your own areas of business and also across the globe. Obviously, there's very large impacts. So to accommodate some of these changes and impacts, the members handbook for the Source Protection Committee has been updated to allow for remote or virtual meetings, and also to allow email and phone polls for voting if there's not quorum at the meetings. And we've also been able to move forward some very important program work, such as Section 34 amendments, review of the new proposed director's technical rules, and also continuing work on our Section 36 work plan. The risk management officials also identified that they were really struggling due to the pandemic and not being able to complete any in-person site visits or inspections on threats or risk management plans. So they have adapted their methods to using phone calls, emails, or video calls wherever possible to receive photographs and picture evidence of the threats on the landscape and then appropriately manage them. They've also identified that the pandemic caused a lot of delays in their negotiations of the remaining risk management plans. And as a result of that, along with the Trent region, many regions across the province had applied to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks for extensions to their risk management plan timelines. The ministry granted a 3-year extension for the Trent region, but the Source Protection Committee gave direction that all risk management plans should be negotiated within 2 years and not use the 3rd year of the extension, which has resulted in the necessity for all risk management plans remaining to be negotiated by January 1st of 2022. So originally they were all to be negotiated by January 1st of 2020, but obviously with the pandemic, that timeline has come and gone. And all risk management officials, as a result of this timeline extension from the ministry, were required to complete work plans, which will demonstrate how they're going to meet these timelines. Those work plans were submitted and approved by both the committee and the ministry. So those are the new timelines that the risk management officials are working under now. We've also come up with some pretty unique education and outreach strategies because obviously during the pandemic, there wasn't any public events to be attending or any events of any nature where social distancing was unavoidable. So we, as a region, had developed, it was called Trust the Tap, and it was basically commemorating the 20th anniversary of the Walkerton tragedy and highlighting all of the efforts in source protection program and also the improvements to safety of municipal drinking water and knowledge gained over the last 20 years. And really highlighting that your drinking water is safe, your municipal drinking water sources are safe, and really highlighting those strides that have been made in the last 2 decades. It was well received across the province, and it was also done in coalition with Quinte Conservation, Conservation Ontario, and the ministry. We have also developed some additional resources and kind of revamped our websites with a focus also on social media outreach to try and adapt to reaching some of those more important sectors. And there's also been increased efforts to reach target audiences, such as real estate agents, fuel oil delivery companies, property management companies who deal with road salt and snow removal, geothermal industry, as they've been identified as one of the key transport pathway creators, and also continued engagement with the agricultural community. There was an opportunity to provide some feedback to the bottled water industry through a post that was made on the Environmental Registry website. And it was to review the water taking permit process and establishing priorities for water use, looking at the cumulative effect that the bottled water industry has on water resources, and also intending to make data around the bottled water industry more transparent and accessible. So a decision was posted on December 18th of 2020 that the province is moving forward with the proposed changes to the Ontario Water Resources Act. And this will give any host municipalities who have bottled water companies applying to draw water in their municipalities or have existing agreements to draw water within their municipalities, they're going to give more direct input on those drawing and water removal activities. Some of the other requirements are that before a water bottling company can apply for a permit, they need municipal council resolution from the local host municipality in support of that. They also, for new groundwater takings or to increase the current groundwater taking, they also need to have municipal input on that before applying for those new permits. It was also noted that the requirement only applies to cumulative water takings that are equal to or above 379,000 liters per day. So those are those really large bottling water companies. The local host municipality was defined as either the lower tier or the single tier municipality that these permits are located within. And then the requirement is also there for municipalities to provide their resolution either in support or not support within 12 months of the request being submitted. And then the resolution, if they are in support of the water taking, they're valid for 5 years. So those amendments will be coming into effect. It's anticipated April 1st, and that's also when the bottled water moratorium is coming to an end. There was a second environmental registry posting that has impacts for source water protection, and it was posted on August 11th of 2020 for a 90-day commenting period. And it was the phase 2 director's technical rule amendments. So back in 2017, we received the phase 1 ones, and they were ones that were identified as maybe some items that had been previously missed in the development of the source protection program. And these ones are amendments that are being proposed directly as feedback had been received over the last 5 years of implementation of the program. Some of the suggested changes are quite major and could result in new drinking water threats or threat enumeration activities needing to be done. And some of them are more minor or administrative in nature. Some of the mandatory larger scale impacts are for specifically calculating the percent impervious cover for all of the drinking water areas, which really defines where the key threat that helps define is the road salt, the application of road salt. So they're revisiting the thresholds for road salt application to be considered a significant drinking water threat. And they're also looking at changing the methods that were used in determining where those percent impervious covers are that are setting those thresholds. So it's, I understand that we as a region have done mapping analysis on all of our groundwater systems to date, and there are no impacted changes on them, but it is anticipated that some of our surface water systems will be impacted by this proposed change, therefore resulting in additional road salt threats that will need to be managed potentially. There's been changes to fuel oil. They have combined handling and storage into one threat. Previously, they had been separated out into 2 threats that would need to be managed. And they have also lowered the quantity of oil needing to be present to be considered a significant drinking water threat in groundwater systems for above grade storage. So previously it was only large volumes over 2,500 liters that needed to be managed by a risk management plan or prohibited. They've now dropped that to 250 liters, which is resulting in all of the residential home heating oil tanks that are above grade, which were previously not identified as significant threats. Now they are, and will be requiring risk management plans for them if they're in the vulnerable area where those are triggered. And there was also a revisiting of the impact of stormwater management facilities for both surface water and groundwater sources. And then considering land use types and impervious areas when determining that definition and their impacts. Some of the lower impact changes or the optional changes are incorporating a climate change risk assessment. So there's a climate change tool which has been developed by Conservation Ontario with support from various ministries that will help municipalities. It's very labor intensive and uses a lot of climate data. But that will potentially have impacts on drinking water sources. So the option is there if municipalities want to start taking that on and incorporating climate change into their drinking water policies. There's also some discussion on changing intake protection zone vulnerable areas, enabling setbacks within a prescribed radius of the intake protection zone 1, which would pull in any transport pathways, and transport pathways are considered any shortcuts to the drinking water system that would allow potential contaminants to make their way more quickly into the drinking water source than if they were just on the normal landscape. And the intake protection zone 2s will also be able to have varying scores based on different land characteristics and hydrological conditions. Right now, all of the intake protection zones are given the same score, but this will allow for a little bit of differentiation depending on what's on the landscape. There has also been a list of land use activities defined for dense non-aqueous phase liquids. So that has been a result of a provincial working group that had met multiple times over a couple of years to really give some more guidance on where that threat would be applicable. And then there's also some realignment of the definitions of waste categories to align with the Environmental Protections Act. We had an update from our Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks liaison officer. Her name is Mary Wooding. She advised that over 350 comments were received on these proposed technical rule changes, and that the ministry is currently working through and considering all of these comments. And they did not give an indication of the timing of the approval of these comments, but it's anticipated that it'll be either spring or summer of this year. But again, we'll keep you posted. As soon as we know, we'll include that in the next meeting package. There was an issue with the Colborne municipal drinking water system that's kind of unique, and we wanted to just let all of our municipalities know about, even though it doesn't apply within our watershed. The municipality actually owns some industrial land that's within the wellhead protection area that they were thinking of selling off, but we're holding off on because dense non-aqueous phase liquids were considered a significant drinking water threat and would be prohibited on those properties. So they made a request to the Source Protection Committee that an exemption be made for those properties specifically, because they felt that that contamination could be properly managed under a risk management plan and shouldn't be subject to prohibition. So the committee had asked that a study be done to make sure that the science was correct and that the area in question was not going to potentially have a very negative impact on the drinking water should these chemicals be allowed to be managed through risk management plans in that location. And the resulting information showed that the vulnerability score was actually much higher than originally anticipated. So the committee decided to hold off on their decision to make that exemption, and they're looking at further reports and research being done. But at this point in time, it looks like there will be no exemption for those lands, as those activities should not be allowed for sure based on the drinking water, the vulnerability score. There was also consideration of incorporation of other drinking water systems into the source protection program, specifically looking at First Nations and well clusters. So these would require probably a different approach than all of the other incorporating municipal systems into the program, particularly using softer tools and more education and outreach. So the ministry is actually currently working on guidance on incorporating private systems that aren't currently in the source protection plan. And this is going to be a priority for sure for the source protection programs branch at the ministry. And in fact, Lower Trent Conservation, which is our lead for our region, in cooperation with Autonomy Conservation, met with Curve Lake First Nations about their drinking water system and the potential for them to join the source protection program. And the meeting was mostly an information sharing and question answering session, but it went quite well. And our region remains committed to supporting First Nation communities and their drinking water sources. We've developed a work plan for the coming year for 2021, which mostly contains work related to Section 34 amendments, with potentially a new well at the Colborne drinking water system and possibly bringing in a new well in Fort Perry, depending on the timelines of those projects, which are being dictated by the municipalities. We're also moving forward with various technical work to address some mapping changes that were identified, changes to the vulnerable areas, and as I mentioned before, the impervious land percentages. We are hoping to move forward with some new threat enumeration and verification activities to get ahead of those new additional threats that would be brought in under these new technical rules. So the above grade fuel oil storage and some of the road salt threats. We also want to start preparing our Section 36 work plan package, potentially taking it to the early engagement step with the MECP to make sure that everything that we've done over the last couple of years is in line with their expectations of us, moving through pre-consultation potentially with some ministries and municipalities, and then also consultation with the public and any other affected stakeholders. And then we would also be we have submitted a requested increase in our budget, just because we're in such a year of increased workload, and they want to increase the number of source protection committee meetings to accommodate that as well. We don't have approval of that updated budget yet, but again, as soon as it's approved, we'll let you know at our next meeting. We have done annual reporting. So our last meeting last year was to submit the rolled up annual report for the Trent region to the ministry. That was submitted on time by the May 1st deadline. All municipalities and implementing bodies were given a grade of progressing well and on target despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Leads across the region have worked with Upper Thames Conservation Authority, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, excuse me, to develop an online reporting tool, which is hopefully going to be used perpetually in the future to move away from the previous Excel documents that all of our implementing bodies were reporting on. And that annual reporting template is supported by the province. It was funded by the province, and it's the way that the province is hoping to get everybody to do their annual reporting. So we are one of the first regions to get onto that reporting template. So hopefully we're well ahead of the curve. And it actually went quite smoothly this year. So we're very happy with the success of that. And that's how we got all of our reports for 2021. Again, our liaison officer, Mary Wooding, she had advised us, excuse me, of the progress that's been made in the program across the province, letting us know that 98% of all legally binding policies have been or are in progress of being implemented. 21 threat policies across 8 source protection regions have been identified as having implementation challenges and are therefore going through amendment processes. On average, about 83% of existing significant drinking water threats across the province have been addressed or managed. And there's about 94% compliance rate across the province that has been found following inspections and contraventions of risk management plans. And that about 15% of the drinking water issues are showing marked improvements since the launch of the program. So it is a very successful program. And I think that's really highlighted in some of these annual reports. And then finally, Canadiana Shores underwent an amendment because a new well was installed, as we discussed at our last meeting. And at the time of our last meeting, it was still open to the public commenting period, which closed on June 5th of 2020. There were no comments received on that amendment package. So on June 15th, it was submitted to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. And on August 14th of 2020, they issued their approval of those amendments. So all of the updated source protection documents have been posted on the Trent Source Protection region website. And also notices were sent out along with the updated mapping layers to the City of Kawartha Lake staff for their incorporation into their documents. And that's the end of the summary of the Source Protection Committee activities over the last year.
You go, Jenna. Thank you for that. So let's get a motion, if I can, to receive the update on the recent Source Protection Committee activities, that the report be received, and then we'll see.
I'll make that.
For Jenna.
I'll make that.
Deborah will move that, seconded by Director Saini. Thank you. Any questions for Jenna on the report? Deborah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see that the work is being done in the bottled water area. That's really important. Is there going to be a fee for a bottled water company to take groundwater from a particular municipality, or is it just the normal fees that are paid for the permit from the MOE?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not actually sure. And Mark, I don't know if you have any more knowledge on this process. I didn't see anything in the documentation that I was circulated on that stated that any additional fees would be collected by the municipality.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that it's more council support than more of a permitting process. But Mark, if you have any other knowledge on it, I'd be happy to let you speak.
Yeah, thanks. And Director Kieserbrink, I'm not aware of anything in terms of an additional fee at this point in time. And I just see our director, Ron Warren, shaking his head too. So, so we're not aware of that necessarily coming through, but it could
not
be
aware. Okay. Program. Now, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency reported a couple of years ago through and CBC News kind of pulled their records, just that where a lot of complaints of bottled water having a smell and being bottled in not good condition. So will there be inspections and criteria such as what is done for municipal water sources when this new, or is it still going to be just a permit to operate but not necessarily the inspections? Or maybe these are premature questions.
For you, Mr. Chair, I believe it's mostly just getting municipal support for allowing those activities to happen.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know. I think because the permits are issued by the ministry, any inspections or additional levels of inspection or regulation would have to come from the ministry.
From the ministry. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know of any of those as of right now.
Okay. So with the changing subjects further, if I could, Mr. Chair, with the Colborne drinking water system issue, that was, I'm sure, a surprise to find out that it was even more at risk. Does that mean that that the municipality isn't going to be able to sell that industrial land like they wanted to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that they're waiting on the approval from the ministry. This was all triggered because they're installing a new drinking water well. And that's what triggered the update in these mapping layers, which actually showed that it's much more vulnerable in that area, that industrial area, than originally had been thought.
Okay.
So it's not to say that the municipality couldn't sell those lands. It may just have impacts on what future activities would be able to occur on those lands should they sell them.
Okay.
Most likely not some of those larger industrial type uses. But yes, as of this time, they haven't been approved yet. The updated mapping hasn't been approved yet. So it's kind of just in a waiting period right now.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other questions for Jenna and Angus? I've got you on the screen, but not your camera, obviously. So if there's any questions from you, Angus, just speak up. Don't be shy.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Jenna on the update? Okay. Thanks, Jenna. We have a motion to receive. Is anyone opposed to receiving that motion? That motion is passed. Thank you. Item 6 is the Source Protection Plan policy update, again by Jenna. I'll turn it over to you, Jenna. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this is a summary of basically all of the work that's been done on our Section 36 work plan, specifically some of the policies in our source protection plan that have been identified as difficult to implement or weren't working the way that they had originally been intended to work. So our work plan was approved by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks on May 21st of 2019. So this is kind of about a year and a half or almost 2 years of work that's gone into a lot of these policy amendments. Some of them are just updating policy wording or clarification, and some of them are brand new policies, which are a result of the province defining a new drinking water threat or changing the intent or the definitions of some of those threats or the thresholds that are required to be met. So this is just a very quick summary with some highlights. The first one is transport pathways. So as I said, there are those shortcuts to the drinking water source. It was identified in the work plan because there was an issue implementing some of those. And this is where we have, the committee has decided to prohibit new geothermal projects within wellhead protection area A's. And those are 100-meter radius around the municipal wells, and that they would have very specific requirements to be met to be allowed in any other vulnerable areas. The liquid hydrocarbon pipelines, that is actually the 22nd significant drinking water threat that was defined by the province over the last couple of years. As it was a new threat, we had to develop all new policies to address those threats. Fortunately for us in our region, we have 2 source protection plans, the second being the Kawarthas source protection plan. And they had originally identified liquid hydrocarbon pipelines as a local threat and therefore had policy wording for them. So we took the policy wording from the Kawarthas plan and adapted it to apply for our plan. And there's obviously been some tweaks to both of the wording in both the Trent plan and the Kawarthas plan as a result of these actually being significant drinking water threats now and not just local drinking water threats that are optional to manage. So all of that wording is new. There was a wastewater collection facility threat, which was identified, or the policies that were identified. that they were difficult to implement, or there had been some wording missed. So we just added the inclusion of a definition of a pumping station into the policy wording, and also made sure that they applied to groundwater systems as well, because originally as they were written, they were specifically for surface water systems. So that was a pretty straightforward policy change. A couple of fuel handling and storage policies have been updated. The first of which was an implementation issue. So that was, as I mentioned before, they've merged handling and storage as one threat to be managed as opposed to managing them separately. And we also included wording in the policy that included infrastructure associated with oil tanks, so pipes, hoses, furnace, things like that, because those weren't included previously. It was specifically for the oil tank itself. And we've also adjusted the inspection requirements to be done by risk management officials, as some of this stuff falls within the TSSA's regulation and their jurisdiction. There was also a new threat, which, as I mentioned, was the above grade fuel oil tanks, which were potentially an oversight when the program was first developed. So we've written policies that will pull in and address those above grade fuel storage threats, both in surface water and groundwater systems. There was questions around some of the agriculture policies, specifically related to the pathogen quantities, which made the ag activities significant drinking water threats. And the result of that was that they have given direction to work on wording through consultation with our municipal working groups and various other implementing bodies that would exclude urban properties from needing risk management plans and would allow for backyard chickens, up to 6 chickens in vulnerable areas, as long as they're not within that wellhead protection area A or the intake protection zone 1, and also defined an extensive education and outreach program to be implemented. The dense non-aqueous phase liquids, we specified that small household volumes aren't going to be subject to the policy. So anybody who has a bottle of nail polish remover in their house doesn't need a risk management plan. So we just wanted to make sure that that was explicitly stated in the policy wording, because that had been identified as a concern. There was road salt threats, the first of which was an implementation issue and also a new provincial definition that we had to write policy wording for. And the direction that was given, and this one is also up for consultation with our municipalities and our working groups and various other implementing bodies, is that they want to exempt municipal roads, small parking lots, residential driveways from the requirements of needing a risk management plan, and encouraging all municipalities to have a salt management plan. And then again, broad education and outreach. So that would result in only needing risk management plans for large commercial parking lots that are most likely contracted out for snow removal. The next one was a new policy related to road salt, and it is a suggested policy that municipalities start monitoring sodium and chloride levels in raw water during high runoff times, so most likely in the spring, just so we can keep an eye on if there's any trending contamination issues for those drinking water sources that we would then need to up our management of the road salt application threat. And lastly, there was a future road salt application policy that was also giving some difficulty during implementation, and it was to encourage municipalities to consider design criteria for sidewalks and roadways to minimize runoff, and that to minimize the use of non-pervious surface coverage. And there's an attachment there that contains a lot more of the wording and specifics of the policies, but that was just a quick high-level summary of the changes that have been made so far.
Perfect, thank you. Let's get a motion, if we can, that the proposed policy updates be received, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Moved by Ted Smith, seconded by Ron Windover. Thank you. Are there any questions for Jenna on the proposed policy updates? I don't think
Sure.
I don't think we have to worry how you spend your day, Jenna. It seems like you're going pretty good there. So go ahead, Deborah.
Oh, sorry. How dangerous is road salt? Like, it seems that that's really coming into play in a lot of the reporting. With the sodium and the chloride ions getting absorbed into the roadside plants, there's, wildlife issues and stuff as well. Is it the sort of thing where we're going to get to the place where municipalities are going to need to not use road salt at all as a means of keeping ice down, or?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, fortunately for us in our part of the world, our part of the province, road salt contamination isn't a huge issue in our water currently, but we don't want to let it get to that point. For the most part, down kind of in the GTA and southwestern Ontario, it is a very large concern because they already have really high levels of sodium and chloride in their fresh water sources as well as their drinking water sources, to the point where some municipalities, I think particularly Waterloo, is even offering incentives to swap out water softeners for ones that are low flow or only run or put salt into the water during hot water, for example, and not cold water usage. Any saltwater pools they're considering as well. They're really trying to look at all sources of salt in drinking water.
So it's cumulative then?
Sorry, yes,
Oh,
yeah, it's
okay.
a cumulative threat, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and some areas, they're called issues contributing areas. So Newmarket is close to us. It has a large issues contributing area for road salt, so they need to be really careful about how much they're applying on the roadways and looking at potentially new or adaptive technologies so that they're applying either a brine solution or a salt sand combination that's not just straight road salt, which is running off into our water sources. So it is, fortunately, we're trying to kind of get ahead of the issue here so that it doesn't get to the level that some of the other areas in the province are experiencing.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Jenna on the update? Pamela, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, just a quick question. So I understand with the first one on geothermal projects, I suspect that's open geothermal, not closed loops. Is that right? That would be an issue. It'd be okay if it was a closed loop?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't know that they've, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't defined open versus closed.
Okay.
Mostly because any type of deep excavation, which could come close to the top of that aquifer, could potentially cause a short circuiting or pushing of contamination into the aquifer during construction, or just coming down around those pipes or what have you. So any type of deep excavation is really considered a transport pathway in most instances, private wells, things like that. Sometimes if it's a shallow aquifer, even something like a basement or a pool could be considered a transport pathway in a groundwater system. It all depends on the depth to the aquifer. So it's not a guarantee that these types of activities would create transport pathways, but the potential is there. So they wanted to, again, get ahead of them before they potentially cause contamination issues in drinking water systems.
So it's all geothermal. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion to receive. Is anyone opposed to receiving the updates? That motion is passed. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, which is our annual progress reporting. And we'll turn it over to Jenna. Go figure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this is similar to what we've done in past years. I'll just provide a high-level summary, and then there's an appendix of the full report with all the details as well. So as we all know, we have to submit annual reporting to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks every year. This meeting specifically, we're just approving our watershed grade, and then this will be rolled up into our regional grade report, which then gets submitted to the ministry by May 1st of this year. So just a quick high level update. As I mentioned, we had switched our format that we've received the annual reporting on. We've moved away from clumsy Excel documents to this really slick and clean online reporting database, and it went very well. Almost all of our municipalities got their reports in by the February 1st deadline, so that was great. So now we usually roll it up based on the ministry's approved public facing document, which highlights 5 sections that need to be reported on. Those are specifically municipal progress, septic inspections, risk management plans, provincial progress, and then just a general awareness and changes in behavior. So starting with the municipal progress, we are suggesting an approved grade of progressing well and on target, because all of our municipalities have established standard operating procedures for screening of applications. 2 of our 5 municipalities have actually finalized and approved their amendments to their official plans and zoning bylaws to incorporate source water protection into their wording. All the remaining municipalities have them in progress. They're either waiting for approval by different levels of either it's the upper tier or lower tier governments, or they're still working on them, but they will be in place shortly. And all of our municipalities have updated their emergency management plans and have procedures in place should there be an event in a vulnerable area for a drinking water source. The septic inspections, we are also suggesting a grade of progressing well and on target. And I should know that this is the highest grade level that's we're able to assign. There is no completely implemented. So this is a good thing that it's still worded as progressing well and on target. So currently, septic system threats need to be inspected every 5 years when they're in a vulnerable area. We have completed the first 5-year inspection. All of our septics have been inspected, and there's 364 of them in our watershed, roughly, not including new builds. 83% of those, so 301, were inspected and they passed the inspection with no maintenance required. 51 of them needed minor maintenance, such as replacing baffles or lids or a pump out. And 12 of them actually failed their inspections and required major work or replacement. We're now in the second year of the second phase of the 5-year inspection timeframe. And it's my understanding that all of our municipalities are starting to work through those this spring. Our risk management plans are as well. We're suggesting a grade of progressing well and on target. Because even though during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was still some progress made on negotiating risk management plans, and with the extension granted on the timeline by the ministry and by the Source Protection Committee, it's fully anticipated that all risk management plans will be in place by the end of the year, of this calendar year, by December 31st of 2021. So to date, there have been 38 risk management plans negotiated within our watershed, and they manage a cumulative total of 633 or 94% of all significant drinking water threats that were previously defined in the assessment report as being existing significant threats that need to be managed. There were 21 Section 59 notices, and those Section 59 notices are associated with Building or Planning Act applications. There was 21 issued in 2020 for a total of 126 applications being screened for source water protection issues since the program began in January 1st of 2015. And all of the screening processes are working very well, and things are being flagged and forwarded to the risk management officials appropriately. The province has also been suggested as getting a grade of progressing well and on target, as about 70% of their policies that they are responsible for are being or have been implemented. The remaining 30 are being classed as continuing or ongoing and will most likely always be marked as in progress. So we have full confidence that the ministry is doing things properly on their end. And finally, the source protection awareness and any changes in behavior. Again, we are suggesting a grade of progressing well and on target, because all of the initiatives that are being undertaken by our municipalities and our risk management officials are really helping the public learn about the program and kind of have a better understanding of what it is. Road signs are a really useful tool for that. So we have about 60 road signs throughout our watershed, which were installed before 2020, 4 of which are on provincial highways, and the remaining 56 are on municipal or county roads. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we, I think, did pretty well with our education and outreach goals, specifically related to updating of websites. So our Conservation Authority website and various municipal websites, social media campaigns, the development of 2 education and outreach programs, the one that I had highlighted before specifically, just showcasing the progress over the last 20 years since the Walkerton tragedy, and then also a specifically tailored program that we've worked on with the City of Kawartha Lakes to develop seasonally specific source water protection website pages. So the one we launched in November was specifically focused on winter related threats. So snow storage, road salt application, fuel oil, things like that. We will be updating them to be spring and summer related. So more focus will be shifted to the agricultural activities. And all of these together have resulted in a cumulative suggested grade of progressing well and on target for our watershed.
Okay, you're on a roll there. I didn't know you were done. Thank you. Any questions for Jenna on that? A lot of information there. Deborah, go ahead.
That is an incredible job. 364 well inspections in a pandemic. Awesome. That's amazing. And good that the 12 are getting fixed too, the ones that failed. That's the whole point of it. And the signs look really good as well. That's all I wanted to say. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jenna on that report? Okay, we have a motion, recommended resolution, resolve that the Kawartha Halliburton Source Protection Authority approve the grade of P, progressing well / on target for the status of implementation within the watershed, and that the draft Kawartha Halliburton Source Protection Authority annual progress report be endorsed and forwarded to the Source Protection Committee for comment in accordance with O Regulation 287/07. I can get a mover and a seconder for that. We'll see if anyone's opposed. Moved by Pat Dunn, second by Deborah. Thank you. Questions, final questions, comments? Anyone opposed to that motion? We'll consider that passed. Thank you for that. And our last item we have on the agenda is correspondence. Maybe I'll turn it over to Mark first to give Jenna a breather. Is there anything in the correspondence, Mark, you want to, I mean, we all have it, but is there anything you want to flag for us or just bring to our attention?
I think thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the item is pretty self-explanatory. One of them relates back to an item that we already talked about, the Section 34 for the Canadiana Wells system, and the other one was a note from Jeff Urich, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, just highlighting some of the work that has been going on at the province related to some of their activities. So there's an online link to that. I noticed that the link didn't work within the agenda itself. Certainly, if there's interest, I can forward the link to everyone post meeting. The annual report itself really is geared towards safe drinking water. There was a note in there that 99.9% of over 500,000 tests in all of the municipal drinking water systems met provincial standards. So that's really a testament to how good the water quality is in our municipal drinking water systems. And then a couple of the other items, bottled water enhancements to the Ontario Water Resources Act was mentioned in there, working with First Nations as well. There's been a lot of work on drinking water standards at the province, looking at lead. They reduced the maximum acceptable concentration in water from 10 down to 5 micrograms. So that's a pretty significant change. And of course, a lot of work on some emerging contaminants of issues. So it was an interesting read. It is a website only. There's no PDF that you can get for it. So again, if there's interest, I can certainly forward that on, and some good work that's been going on at the province.
Thanks, Mark. I'll just ask for a motion that the correspondence be received, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Ron Hooper, seconded by Deborah. Thank you. Any questions on the correspondence? Okay, I'll call the question. Anyone opposed to receiving the correspondence? No. Thank you. We'll consider that passed. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jenna, for the comprehensive updates. New business meeting time. Item 9, we just wanted to, been some conversation about our friends in Halliburton. Some of them struggle for the 1 o'clock time for our source water protection meeting, and it might be easier. So I'm just wondering if the thought about if you would mind if we move that date for the next meeting to 2 o'clock. We can start our board meeting at 1. We'll just recess at 2. We'll do the source protection, then we'll go back to our board meeting, and that might make it a little easier for some of our friends in Halliburton if that. Most of them, a lot of them aren't here, unfortunately. Pamela's here. I don't know if you can speak to that, Pamela, if you think that would help, or we can certainly reach out to them in the meantime and just see if that would be a bit of an assistance before the next meeting.
I can check with them. I know it helps for me because we have a 9 o'clock council meeting on these Thursdays. So okay. I'm not sure. I'll check with Liz and with Pat as well. Okay,
thank you. And if you can just let us know, and then does any of the board mind if we just flip that to 2 and then we'll start our meeting at 1? I mean, at the end of the day, okay, so that sounds good. So let's, if you don't mind reaching out to them, Pamela, I appreciate that. Let us know, and we'll go. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 22nd, a month from now. And that's it. Motion to adjourn, please. Pat Dunn, second by Ron Windover. Anyone opposed to adjourning? We are adjourned. Thank you. It was nice to meet you, Pam.
Good meeting you too. We met before, but that's another story.
I believe you. Uh-oh.
I think at AMO or something.
Better be
Roma.
careful when I say that. So why don't we take 5 minutes and we'll just stretch if you need to, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with our board meeting for Kawartha Conservation.
Mr. Chair, do we leave this meeting and then go back into the other one?
I think it's the same Zoom meeting. If you just want to,
Same one? Okay.
Mark, there's no new Zoom, so just you want to just take 5 minutes, and then we'll come back at 5 minutes, and we'll do the board meeting. Thanks. Okay, big guy's back. I guess we can start. Are we still good with YouTube and everything, Mark? Are we?
There we go. That was one of those opportunities where I forget I'm on mute. Yes, Mr. Chair, we're still good with YouTube. We're live currently.
Okay, so we're good to go then. We'll call the meeting, Board of Directors meeting, February 22nd meeting of 21, March 25th, 2021. We'll call it meeting to order. Ask for a motion, please, for the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Deborah, seconded by Pat. You guys okay with first names? We're pretty, okay, good. Thank you. Anyone opposed to moving the agenda? A motion is carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest on today's agenda? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes from the Board of Directors meeting of January, I guess. January was our last meeting, January 20th. Approval of the minutes, please. Ted Smith, seconded by Ron Windover. Questions? Anyone opposed to adopting the minutes? Minutes are passed. Thank you. There was no business arising from the minutes. But just before we do the election of the vice chair, I just want to take a minute. I know we have a few new staff and a few returning stars, so I'm going to turn it over to Mark to just say a few introductions so the board can have a look and introduce us to some of the new employees. Go ahead, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe what I can do is I'll get our newest members of our authority just put on their cameras, and as our chair mentioned, we've had 4 people join our conservation authority recently. A couple were some vacancies that we're managing last year, and then there's a couple of staff that we brought on board to specifically help out with some special projects that have already been approved for the coming year. In one case, a couple years. So we're really happy to welcome a couple of people. And what I'll do is I'll turn it over to the directors in order to introduce them. A little bit more detail, but we're very excited to have these staff on board. You can see they're pretty young, they're pretty bright, and they're very enthusiastic. So we're very happy to have them. And I'll start with maybe Emma, if you can introduce Tanner. And he's our water quality specialist. I know he has to run to a meeting, so I just wanted to introduce him first there.
Thank you, Mark, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to introduce Tanner Liang to the Board of Directors. So as Mark mentioned, Tanner is our new water quality specialist, and he comes to us with a master's degree in environmental science from Trent University, where he specialised in water quality and chemistry. So that's a pretty good standing for this role. So he has previous experience working for Swim, Drink, Fish and developed several citizen science programs across the Great Lakes region. He was also project lead for the Environmental Geoscience Research Group at Trent University. So he's coming with a lot of experience, which we're really, really pleased about. So Tanner is going to be working for us on the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project, and also focusing on our provincial water quality monitoring programme. And then, of course, we've got our special projects. So we've got the City of Calder Lakes investigative upstream projects and our nearshore programme. And then our Durham region, we've got our Lake Scugog environmental management programme and also our investigative upstream programme. So that's quite a lot of information, but essentially we're really, really happy that he's with us, and he's done some fantastic work since he's joined us in January. So I'm really delighted. So Tanner, I don't know if you want to say anything else to add to that, but really happy he's here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark and Emma. Those are really kind words, and man, you covered a lot of things of me. So hi, everybody. My name's Tanner, originally from Brampton, but I grew up in Timmins. I don't know where you go. Timmins is like way up there. But I came to the Kawarthas for post-secondary, and I haven't left. So I really love this area. Like Emma said, I did my master's at Trent, where I focused on Arctic water chemistry. So I surveyed over 100 lakes up there. So I looked at like physical, chemical, biological parameters, but then I worked with Swimming Fish, and I worked with localized groups. So empowering normal citizens to take action and to monitor water quality across the Great Lakes. And I work with local community members, but also with First Nations community as well. So I'm really excited to bring all that experience to Kawartha Conservation and to do my part to empower local citizens and to help promote what we do in this watershed that's full of water. So thanks again, everybody. Sorry, I have to run to another meeting, but it was great to meet everybody. Please ask or email me if you have any water quality questions. I love to nerd out about that kind of stuff. And fun fact about me, I have a flock of geese and ducks that I update Emma all the time. I love agriculture as well. So anyways, have a great rest of your meeting. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Welcome, Tanner.
Great. So as you can see, Tanner is a very enthusiastic individual, and we're certainly happy to have him. And we have 3 more very enthusiastic individuals as well, which I'll let Christy Virgo introduce.
Thanks very much, Mark. So first off, I'm very pleased to announce that Brianna is returning to us. You will recall Brianna has been in front of the board a couple of times, one with our stewardship strategy draft a couple of years ago, and then last year with our management plan for Ken Reed Conservation Area. She was the mastermind behind that. And today she has, or not today, but earlier this month, she rejoined our team as our conservation areas technician. So we have 2 of those technicians. Brianna was kind enough during the pandemic, we lost a staff person, and Brianna sort of backfilled that position on a redeployment agreement, and she did an excellent job. And so when we were looking to fill that position, she applied for it, and we were really pleased to see that, because she brings with her a lot of energy as well as a lot of really great ideas for our conservation areas, having been involved in so many of the strategies and so many of the things that we've been doing in the Conservation Authority already. So Brianna is reporting to us from Durham East Cross Forest today. She's out in the field, and so Brianna, if you wanted to say a quick hello.
Hi everyone, it's so nice to see you again. I'm actually at Windy Ridge right now, so Melissa and I are just hanging out here, but I'm so thrilled to be back a part of the Kawartha Conservation team within the conservation areas. I think they're great. I love working with our parks. So I'm super excited to not be going anywhere anytime soon.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up on our list, we have the masked duo under the Melissa Brown heading. We have Melissa Brown, who you will recall at our last board meeting, we announced her joining our team as our special projects assistant. So she's providing a lot of administrative support and team support for our special projects, including our implementation of our action plan, our lake management plans rather, as well as doing a lot of work with some of the special grant programs that we have with OMAFRA, as well as the Environmental Damages Fund with the Bring Back the Fish. So she's been implementing all kinds of fantastic processes that have helped to keep us a little more on target and streamlining our business processes. Melissa, as I mentioned before, is going through for her Bachelor of Business Administration. And she's doing that part-time while she's also working for us. So Melissa, if you wanted to wave so they know which one is you.
Hi, everybody. It's so nice to meet you finally. As Christy mentioned, I'm going through for my bachelor's degree, so hopefully I'll be able to bring some transferable skills in. And already it's been such a great atmosphere. I'm very excited to work with everybody and continue to work on some of these special projects, and especially working with Liz. She's absolutely wonderful, as Christy will tell you in a minute. So with that, I'll let Christy introduce you to Liz.
Thanks, Melissa. And so yes, Liz is also a returning alumni from Kawartha Conservation. She was with Kawartha Conservation back in 2016. She came in to head up our education program. and to launch that pilot back then, doing up a lot of the programming. She is a teacher, so she brings that skill set, but she also, and Liz, I'll probably get this wrong, I apologize, she has a Bachelor of Science, and she's also a graduate of Fleming College's Ecosystem Management program. So she also has that science background, and she's joined our team as our new landowner services technician. So she's doing a lot of our landowner grant programs, as well as providing some technical support to landowners that are interested in doing stewardship projects on their property, doing a lot of the field work for our 50 million tree program and our the agricultural stewardship program through OMAFRA and a number of other things. So Liz, if you wanted to pop in and say hello.
Sure, thank you. Thanks. So I'm so excited to meet you all, and I'm so happy to be back even after a few year hiatus. It's been wonderful already, just this short month that I've been here, to collaborate with everyone and meet all the new faces and say hello to all the other people that have been working hard here for so many years. So I'm glad to be back, and I can't wait to work with everyone some more.
Well, thank you all. And on behalf of the board, I know I speak for the entire board when I say welcome, either welcome or welcome back. And I know we all look forward to working with you. And if there's anything we can do to help you along with your jobs, then certainly don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. So best of luck, and thanks for showing up today and saying hi. Appreciate it. Now get back to work. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is the election of the vice chair. The position of vice chair is elected from the board of directors annually. We didn't do it at the last meeting when I was elected as chair, just because we didn't have some of the directors weren't here, so we wanted to do it at this meeting. So I think what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Mark. So let's just do, I'm not going to do all the balloting motions, because if there's not a vote, we don't need to do that. But let's do the resolution that Mark Mahowski, CAO, be appointed as elections chair, and then I can turn it over to him. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that, Pat Dunn and Ron Hooper. Anyone opposed to that? Okay, I'll turn it over to yourself, Mark, and let's see what we can do. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And so as the assumed chair for elections, what I'll do is I'll just describe the position a little bit briefly. The vice chair position is a Conservation Ontario alternate, serves in the absence of the chair, and is assigning authority of the authority, and is also a foundation member, a Kawartha Conservation Foundation member. That's the group that raises awareness and funds for the authority. Those are the primary roles of that particular responsibility. It doesn't, I don't think, take a whole lot of time from the standpoint of the responsibility. So that's just a bit of a background. The position of vice chair is elected from the board of directors annually. And what I'll do is I'll describe the process of the elections for chair and vice chair first, and then we'll look at the resolution from there. In the event of a vote by ballot, 2 scrutineers need to be appointed, and the ballots are destroyed following the election. The ballots will be by electronic distribution if needed, and they'll be sent to you directly in the chat. What I'll do is the procedures for elections are as described in our bylaw, and I'll just run through them very quickly here. Nominations are called for from the floor. Nominations require a nominator only, not a seconder. And when all nominations have been received and no further nominations put forward after 3 calls, a motion to close nominations is requested. This motion requires a mover and a seconder and is voted upon. The suggested resolutions are included in the board report. All nominees shall signify when asked if he or she will stand for the position. And when all nominations are closed, each candidate will be given an opportunity to address the membership in the order of their last name. The election vote, if needed, will be by electronic ballot, as I mentioned, counted by election scrutineers and announced by the election chair. In the event of a tie vote, a second ballot will be taken. And if that too is a tie, then a third vote is held. Should there be a tie vote after the third vote, the election will be decided from the draw of a hat. The election chair will declare the vice chair following their election or acclamation. And I'll describe a few other points as well. Since we had our last election, there were a number of proclamations that were put into force by the province. So as a result, the vice chair position, our current chair, Mr. Letham, was serving as the vice chair. So the Conservation Authorities Act now says that the vice chair position has to be open to another municipality. So that now excludes Director Dunn and Director Seymour Fagan from running. And I also note that our past chair, Mr. Ted Smith, was serving the chair position for 4 years. So in our bylaws, it also states that that Ted has to step down for a year before running for office again. So essentially what I'm saying is the pool is a little small, but there are some exceptions that of course could be applied for, but wouldn't be in effect until the ministry would sanction that. So I'll just mention that. Following the election of vice chair, I'll step down, and our chair, Chair Letham, will assume the chair position again. So with that, I'd like to call for the appointment of scrutineers, and you have the motion before you. I'd like to call that, the motion is that in the event of a vote by ballot, that John Chambers and Christy Virgo be appointed as scrutineers, and that ballots be cast electronically, and that ballots be destroyed following the election. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? So I see Director Kieserbrink and Director Dunn. Thank you. So with that, what I'll do is, can I have, we'll ask for nominations for the vice chair position. As a reminder, just a nominator only is required. And when all nominations have been received and no further nominations put forward after 3 calls, a motion to close nominations will be requested. So with that, I'll ask for nominations for vice chair.
I'll nominate Councillor Ross.
Great. And can I have a second call for nominations for vice chair? And a third call for nomination for vice chair.
Hi, Mark, it's Angus.
Yep.
I'm going to do Deborah the favor and nominate her as well.
Okay, great. And so with
Mr. Chair, yes, you are the chair right now. I feel like because it's a pandemic right now, and I'm the sole provider for my family, I feel like I have to decline. I'm holding on as best I can over here, but I don't know that I would do the position the justice it needs, especially within the fundraising aspects and what have you.
Okay, great. So that kind of works with my next part, is looking at whether nominees will stand. So thank you, Director Kieserbrink, for that. So I'll ask Director Ross, are you willing to stand for the position of vice chair?
Thank you, Mark. I was hoping there was interference when Deborah put my name forth, but it appears I was right. No, I'm not. I won't be able to do it justice at this time, so I will not take that opportunity. Thank you, though.
Great. Thank you, Director Ross. So we are at this point in the same position that we were at the last meeting. Certainly be willing to entertain any. Go ahead, Director Kieserbrink.
Sorry. If there isn't anyone else, I can, because I mean, as a, if there is no other option, I will. I just wanted to know if there was anyone else first.
Can I just say, Mr. Chair, Deborah, I think you'd make a great vice president, your enthusiasm. And as far as work on the foundation, I'm quite willing to sort of help you with that. If you can't make a meeting, let me know and I'll go. They're not that often. There's a few a year. And if by any means you can't make it, I'm happy to step in and do it. I'm doing it now. So certainly happy to work with you on that. So I don't think from a workload perspective, I'll try to carry as much of the load as I can, if that takes any of the worry off what you're thinking.
Okay, thank you.
Great, and thanks for that clarification, Mr. Chair. Director Letham, I guess it's director at this point. I still say chair, regardless. So Director Kiesebrink, I guess that means that you'll stand for the position, which is.
Okay, then.
Okay, great. So in that case, thank you very much. I agree. I think you'll make a great vice chair. And with that, congratulations, Director Kiesebrink, on your appointment as our new vice chair for 2021. Congratulations. And so with that, I will gladly turn it over to our chair, Mr. Letham. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Congratulations, Deborah. Did you want to say anything to the board, or totally up to you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. We were going through it there. So let's move on to item 7. We don't have 6 with deputations. We have none. Item 7 is a presentation on the Talking Forest app, and I believe Christy is going to give us an update on that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I was upstairs. I had to run downstairs for this. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. Can you see my screen, everyone? Excellent. So I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to update you on where we're at with the Talking Forest app. As you recall, it was a program that was developed, it sort of came to mind out of COVID as a way to provide some outreach, some educational programming to our community during a time when we were trying to keep our staff and our community safe. So recognizing all of the needs to be social distance and all of the different COVID restrictions. So we developed this app in partnership with TreeFrog. TreeFrog is an app developer and web developer out of Newmarket, Ontario. And when we pitched the idea to a number of different providers, they were the ones that sort of quickly raised themselves to the top, primarily because, you know, A, they're local, but B, they were extremely interested in this type of programming. And they're really excited about working with us to help make this app, you know, exciting and accessible to our community. So we're really quite excited to be working with them. They, you know, out of discussions with them, we decided to proceed with the Android version of the app first. And the main reason for that is that the Google Play Store tends to be a little bit more responsive when you're developing apps and getting back to you and providing comments so that you can move that process along a little bit faster. So we were able to get the app tested and out to the public a little faster than we would if we tried to go with the Apple Play Store first. But we are, of course, in the development of the Apple Play Store now. So the app was released in February of 2021, so, you know, just one short month ago. And at that time, we were still in a provincial lockdown. So we were still, you know, recognizing that we had the stay-at-home order from the province. It kind of put us in a bit of an uncomfortable situation because we were excited about launching a new program, but at the same time, we didn't want to tell people to come out while the province is telling them to stay home. So we did, you know, what we consider to be a soft launch. We put up some signs within the conservation area, recognizing that, you know, the app is here, and if you're out and you're walking around, then, you know, please feel free to download it, and provided some instructions as to how to do that. We also, of course, put it up on our website and directed our community to the website for information on the app. And then as those orders, the provincial orders changed and we started to open up, we started to reach out to the community and through social media and a number of other channels that I'll talk about in a little while. And so as a result of that, since launching the app in sort of early February, we've had just over 100 downloads of the app. And I think if you were to speak to our communication specialist, he'd probably say we've had well over that in requests for the Apple app. So Apple seems to be a very popular device in our community. And as I mentioned before, we are in the development stages of that app and waiting for the Apple Play Store to get back to us so that we can test the version that's gone out to them. In my last discussions with Tree Frog, they indicated that they feel that a April 2021 launch looks pretty reasonable. We're hoping to be testing it in the next week or so, and then putting it out to the public towards the end of April. So it is coming, and I anticipate that's also going to give us a really unique opportunity to start talking about the app all over again, give us a reason to go back out to the community. This is a really difficult time of year to be launching any kind of program because our trails are, you know, either really, really muddy or really, really icy, depending on the day. And right now they're really muddy. But, you know, just a couple of days ago, they were really icy. So it's kind of hard to encourage people to go out on the trails when we're also trying to keep them safe. So having an opportunity to go back to the community in April is going to be welcome for us to be able to provide even more encouragement for people to download the app. So as I mentioned, we did the soft launch in February, and then as the orders changed, we started to do some social media posts. We've been on some local radio, Bob FM, we were featured on them a couple of times with regards to the app. We also did a feature on the Advocate podcast station. And we were actually featured in a CBC radio. It's a national program. It's a weekend program. We did the recordings and it's been submitted to CBC radio. We got bumped last week from the playlist, but we anticipate that in the next week or so it's going to go forward. So that's quite exciting. And of course, from even that limited amount of media engagement, we've had quite a bit of interest from the community. We've had a couple of conservation authorities, especially our neighboring ones, Otonabee and Cloca, have both reached out indicating that they're interested in developing a similar type of app and wanting to get some more information from us. And then we've had a couple of sort of community groups. So we've had the Millbrook Valley Trails Association and a Halton Trail group also reach out and look for more information on the app. So that's always nice. It always sort of lets you know that you've created something pretty exciting when people are coming at you from all across the province. So what is the app and how does it work? We've got our map here sort of indicates all these little blue icons are sort of the different trail markers or different trees that are talking rather. And those trail markers show up on the app when you're out there. So you don't necessarily need a map to tell you where you're going. You can just follow along on the trail and you'll know when you're coming up to one of the trees that is going to talk. But the nice thing about this program is there is no need for infrastructure. So if we wanted to move a tree, if we wanted to change the location of the trail for whatever reason, maybe we've had an issue with the trail, we want to move the trail, we can do that, and it's all done from the desktop. So there's no need for us to go out into the field and move signs or take signs down and change locations and that sort of thing. So it's also given us a really unique opportunity to reach out to different guests. Whether it's, our MP who is a voice of one of the trees, a couple of radio personalities are the voices to some of the trees. And as well, we've got some family and friends of our staff members that have stepped up to the plate to provide some of the voices to the trees. And it really gives us an opportunity to put different personalities to those trees. And so with the board's indulgence, I'd just like to play one of the trees for you. I don't know if we'll play the whole thing. We'll just see how everybody's enjoying it. I'm just going to test this out. I hope it works.
Wow, you found me. I'm a little maple sapling. What could be more Canadian than that? We maple trees are some of the best trees in the forest. Our leaf is on everything from the Canadian flag to jerseys of Toronto's hockey team. Go Leafs, go! Want to know a secret? The one place our leaf isn't, the penny. I know. It's hard to find pennies these days, but if you do find one, you'll see a leaf that looks like a maple leaf. It isn't though. It's a sycamore leaf. They are nice trees too. Not as nice as a maple leaf, but they're good friends. If you would like to see a sycamore, you should head down to the corner of Kent Street and Victoria Avenue in Lindsay. Those great big trees along the edge of Victoria Park are sycamores. Maple trees, though. How cool are we? We give you maple syrup. Sweet! This forest is my home. You're welcome anytime you want to come over to play. Just please make sure you clean up after yourself. Keeping garbage out of the forest is really important. All that glumpy, grimy stuff makes us sick and can hurt the animals. If you keep my home clean, one day I'm going to be tall and strong just like my dad. I'll have branches that reach up to the sky so that birds can come and nest and keep me company. My leaves will shade the forest floor so that moss and mushrooms can grow. It'll be epic. Hey, thanks for visiting. Thanks for cleaning up. Hope to see you soon.
So that was the son of one of our staff members, Nancy Aspen. That was her 10-year-old son. But as you can see, each of the scripts is designed to be, a minute and a half, 2 minutes long, keep people moving through the trails, but provide people with a little bit of information about, the tree, some fun facts about Kawartha conservation or Ken Reed or even the community in general. So, focusing them on different areas within the community where they might also like to visit once they're finished visiting Ken Reed. So,
wow.
Whoop, sorry. There we go. So the next steps of our app are once we have the Android version once we have the Apple version up and running, we already have some funding proposals in for, the Talking Forest 2.0. And really, this is going to give us the opportunity to run multiple different trails at the same time. Right now, we're limited to, we have one Talking Forest program. And so this will, when folks open up the app, they'll have an opportunity to click on a variety of different trails that they want to participate in. And this is really going to be key for our education program specifically, because it's going to allow us to gear some of those programs to curriculum so that teachers can access this kind of outdoor education, at a reasonable price, but also from the standpoint of doing all of the social distancing and, they're not doing a whole lot of guest speakers and that sort of thing at this point in time. So we're quite excited about that. But it also gives us a chance to reach out to different user groups or people with different interests. We could have a First Nations trail, we can have a mental health trail, all of those types of things. So we're quite excited about that. And hopefully we will be hearing from RBC's Tech for Nature. That was the grant that we applied for, and we should be hearing from them shortly as to whether or not we were successful on that. And that is all I have for you. Thank you. Any questions?
That's awesome. Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, if you could just pull your screen down, Christy, so I can see.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out how to do that.
What's the name of the app, Christy? Is it the Talking Trail?
It's called the Talking Forest.
Talking Forest, okay. Question, go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you. Christy, is this something that's original? Like, are you physically creating the app with this setup?
Yes, so the Talking Forest app is an original Kawartha conservation product.
Okay.
It hasn't been done before like this. There's similar types of apps out there. Some you scan QR codes, some use the geofencing, which is what we're using. But it takes you to a screen with printed information. So it's sort of a signage on your phone. But the concept of having the trees talk to you and that sort of thing, that is, from what I understand from the number of app developers we went to, it's an original idea of ours. But of course, we don't own the technology that makes it possible. Right.
Yeah. Would it be possible at all to make it something that could be monetized where other conservation authorities could somehow utilize the app? And then use it as a fundraiser element for other programs that we want to do?
Yeah, so I guess the short answer to your question is yes. Other conservation authorities and other user groups can certainly access. They could go to a completely different app developer and say, this is the kind of thing I want, and they could develop it and there's nothing in it for us.
Of course.
Yeah, so There's
But
no
you've
real
got-
way for us to monetize the app by selling it to like to sell the idea to another conservation authority. We can't really do that. But there is opportunities if we wanted to do advertising or if we wanted to, you know, that kind of thing. Certainly we could do that. I think one of the great things about this product is the fact that it is so accessible regardless of where you're coming from. And certainly we get the parking fees. And that's sort of how we're looking at it, as being something where we receive the parking fees for people coming into the conservation area.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ron, go ahead.
I just have a comment. I'd just like to say a great initiative, Christy. You and the team should be applauded for what you've done. We'd had something similar to that. It was like there were little pods that you sort of went to, unfortunately, in our Valleys 2000, and every one of the pods was damaged. So this is kudos to you for coming up with some sort of a better way of doing it. And I just look forward to the strong oak tree that's going to have the mayor do his voiceover. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not touching that one. Thanks, though. No, I agree. That's kind of awesome. So any other questions for Christy? Okay, I'm just going to get Angus, would you mind moving that the presentation for the Talking Forest app be received? Get you on the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. I get a seconder. Kathleen Seymour Fagan. Any further questions? Anyone opposed to that motion? That motion is passed. Thanks for that, Christy. Appreciate it. That was great.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move into staff reports. Our first report is the permits issued by designated staff, January and February. I've just lumped these under staff reports rather than consent because I just like to get a quick, and I mean quick because, Ron, if you want to give us a quick 2-minute overview of the permits, if there's anything, we've got the report, but if there's any highlights you want to just, a lot of good work being done here, obviously, so we don't want to lose it. So if you want to pop your screen on and give us any highlights or lowlights, we're all yours for a bit. Go ahead.
Sounds good. Sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties there right at the last moment. Yeah, I probably don't even need that long. As you're aware, this is pretty much the monthly report card on permitting and how we meet our standard timelines, which are set out by Calc for reviewing an application, just making sure that it's complete within 14 days, 2 weeks to make sure it's complete, and basically 3 more to process the permit and get them out the door. And it's the January and the February reports. And as you can see on the percentages, we're satisfied with that. We're never satisfied until it's 100% of everything, but it shows good work on behalf of staff, and maybe I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, a little disappointed you got over Christmas there. You missed the guidelines by a day, so I wonder if you could work on that for next year. Yeah.
Just missed the day, yeah.
Yeah, that's well done, Ron. Thanks. Any
Thank
questions for Ron on the permitting update? Ron Hooper, go ahead.
Sorry, I had hit the wrong button. Mr. Weir, thank you very much for your report. And as we move forward into 2021, can you get some sort of sense of where we're going? Like everyone understands that there's a lot of people moving from the traditional 416 areas, moving up to the cottage countries and making permanent homes and things like that. Are we sort of ahead of where we would be last year, or are we sort of normalcy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And as we move forward, are we ahead of the game or behind?
Through the chair, I can actually confirm, because earlier today I was finishing up a permit, and we're almost about a third ahead of where we have been the last 2 years. So I think we've just gone over the 400 mark the last 2 years. It was maybe 405 last year. And we're on pace right now for more than 500. Whether or not that will keep going remains to be seen, but it has been quite fulsome lately, yes.
Good. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you. Deborah, did you have a question?
Yeah, more just a comment, because I know in the beginning we were implementing new technology, and now, with the IMS, electronic payments, permit application submissions, the permit being electronic. Do you find, Ron, that things are working more smoothly now that new technology has been implemented?
Through the chair, yes, I couldn't have asked for it to be better than the way it's working now. I was actually going to mention that in the next report, which is the annual report from last year, but we were already trying to get more technologically advanced with it and have less time consumption, both by staff and by our clients. And COVID sort of helped that along a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's a silver lining there.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ted.
Thanks, Chair Latham. Ron, I just wondered, this is regarding a permit that was a fill permit that was applied for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years ago, and that being at the Cars Auto site south of Manila on Simcoe Street. And to my knowledge, there has been no fill brought in there, which I think was the intent of the original application. They have certainly moved some fill around on site. It was my perception that the whole idea of the berm they were constructing was to alleviate the site of a wrecking yard and all of the carcasses of old cars. And yet, for those of you who have been by it, you may have noticed that the berm they have put up is now decorated completely with old cars. So I just wondered has there been any, like I said, I'm quite sure there's been no fill brought in, but I didn't know whether there was any change in the status of that application.
Through the chair, I do recall it was a staged permit. And you're right, the first stage was to get a berm, and then the second stage was to get some, actually a fair bit of fill in the site. We have not had any contact with the owners, the people who the original permit was issued to. And to be honest with you, I haven't been up to that site, and if it's not a year, it's probably close to a year now. And it is my understanding, though, that both Brock Township and the region of Durham had concerns with that first phase, and in particular, how the truck movements in and out off of Simcoe Street was the key issue. I don't know if making the berm out of vehicles is their way of, I don't know what the term would be, but thumbing their nose at the region and the municipality, perhaps. But I couldn't really say I have an update on it beyond that. We have not been in touch with the owners.
All right, thank you for that. And as I said, I'm quite certain there's been no off-site fill brought in that was going to create those traffic issues. So
yeah,
I think we just moved around some of their assets in there because it was an old gravel pit, and they certainly have done nothing to improve the site of the property. But anyway, thank you for the update.
Any further questions for Ron on the permits? Okay, so I'm going to summarize the resolution. It's as printed, but that the permits, 28 permits issued by staff in January, 28 would be received, 28 permits issued by staff in February be received, and that the permitting performance report be received as well. I can get a moved by Ron Hooper, seconded by Ted Smith. Any further questions? Anyone opposed to that motion? We'll consider that passed. Thank you. Ron's going to stay with us. 8.2 is the annual permitting report. Same idea, just a broader scope. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, and as I touched upon in the last note, I would love to be able to take the credit for it. It was a successful year in terms of permitting and meeting our time requirements as prescribed by Calc. It's really down to the dedication of staff, and I include myself in that, but it's mostly the staff who work for me, and I would be amiss to not say that. I did have some ideas about the streamlining of the process, and in particularly the number of photocopies we were making, having clients come into our office to sign, and how long it was taking to do the initial triage of the permit to find out whether or not it was complete. COVID sort of helped those things come to fruition, and the process sped up quite a bit. And of course, now this is the new normal. And so post-COVID, we will continue to do as many things electronically as possible, from taking in the applications, taking in the fees, looking at things, whether it's remotely or in the office. We're still looking at them electronically. We're not going through all the physical efforts of assembling a permit, using the IMS system, making sure that everything is right there and getting them out the door. And as it says on the statistics here, we not only did more permits than in 2020 than we had in 2019, but we also improved our percentages up to 98%, I think it was, for both complete applications and in getting those applications out the door, which generally leads to happier clients and happier staff and happier politicians.
Agree. Happier customers. We're
Happier
all happy.
customers.
Everybody's so happy. We're all going to get a tree. Can I get a
It
motion that
talks.
the annual permitting performance report for 2020 be received, please? Ron Windover, moved by Ron, second by Deborah. Any questions for the other Ron on that annual report? Seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion to receive? That motion is passed. Thank you. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you very much.
8.3 is the Greenbelt consultation. Your report as well, Ron. Go ahead.
Right. Again, just briefly, at this point, the report is just to be received by the board, and it's in reflection with the provincial, not mandate, but the provincial plan to expand the Greenbelt plan area. At this point, there are a number of things that the province is looking at. They are early in the consultation process. There may be some opportunities to expand the Greenbelt within the watershed, but they're quite limited in our watershed. At this point, it appears to me, one critical element is that it will only apply to those designations on publicly owned lands, so that we don't want it to have any impact on the existing or future development activities on privately owned lands. And of course, that's not just the Conservation Authority, but that's also our municipal partners are looking for that. But it might be an opportunity to expand into areas already designated as, in the official plan, as a park or an open space or conservation or some kind of environmental protection land that were just missed in the initial Greenbelt boundaries. And of course, we want to participate in that. And there was even a significant teleconference yesterday with our other CA partners. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll just ask for a motion to receive the Growing the Greenbelt report. We'll see if there's any questions. Pat Dunn, second by Kathleen Seymour Fagan. Any questions for Ron on the report? Seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion to receive it? That motion is passed. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Okay. Item 8.4 is the Conservation Authorities Act proclaimed sections. 8.4, I'll turn it over to Mark. Your report, sir. Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the board. This is related to the Conservation Authorities Act and part of the province's desire to make some amendments to the legislation in order to provide a little bit more consistency in the services that we provide, and some of the transparency and governance measures that they put forward. So this is related to some correspondence as well that's on the agenda. The province proclaimed a few sections of the Conservation Authorities Act that were to be proclaimed at a later date. So they did that, and that was done on February 2nd. So on that date, there were several clauses in the act that came to be, and those are listed in the staff report. A lot of them were really geared towards governance, dealt with citizen appointments, any agreements where there are deviations amongst the member municipalities serving on the Conservation Authority boards. There was identification that an agricultural member could be appointed to the board by the minister, and exceptions to vice chair and chair terms can be sought. Also identifying that the chair and vice chair positions serve for 2 years, and also for different watershed municipalities for those positions. The appointing of an investigator, annual audit, and the desire for agendas and minutes to be made available to our communities 30 days after a meeting for the minutes, and just before the meeting for the other ones. So we actually, according to our business practices, we are in alignment with a lot of the province's requirements. There's a few elements that we'll have to tweak a little bit. Some of that is identified in our administrative bylaw, which will require a few tweaks. And so we will work towards those. Conservation Ontario, in order to provide consistency, a couple years ago created a draft bylaw template, and so that'll be updated first, and that'll provide some wording for us to use in our bylaw. It'll be integrated in, and then we'll send as a best practice to the ministry a letter shortly after this meeting, just to let the ministry know that we are following their guidelines and the legislation. So that'll be early next week that we send it. There's an April 1st deadline on that. And the one specific note that I'll just identify is that our minutes have to be posted within 30 days. So that will require a bit of a switch for how we do things now, which is we post our minutes after the minutes are approved. So we're looking at a shift to post those on the website prior to official endorsement by the board or approval. And so what I'll do as a best practice is we'll prepare the minutes, and I'll send that off to the board for any comments on anything that might need to be tweaked. We'll make those tweaks, and then we'll post on the agenda, or on the website prior to that 30 days. So you can look forward to some emails just dealing with the minutes in the future. And that's everything I have, Mr. Chair, on that item.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. The motion that staff report on the province's proclamation of select sections within the Conservation Authorities Act be received. And get a mover and a seconder. Moved by Ted Smith, seconded by Pat Dunn. Any questions for Mark on that report? Seeing none. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Motion is passed. Thanks, Mark. 8.5 is the CAO report. I'll turn it over to you again, Mark.
Great, and so what I'll do on this item is I'll summarize maybe some highlights. I know everyone's read the report, so certainly in corporate services, we've had a big focus on adopting technology that continues through, well, for all time. I think realistically, we're making some great progress, but we've been tying up year end. We've been trying to make sure our information is protected. So we recently enabled a two-part authentication and just implemented rotating passwords, particularly important given we're all working remotely. And I know our communications specialist is busy with our website and tweaking some of the wording and the Google ads in order to give us a better response on our website, filling blank searches, for instance. So that's been tremendous. In terms of pandemic response, we've been fluid in terms of the response and continue to do so, but we're working remotely largely, opening up a little bit as, of course, the pandemic surges or falls back. And on the HR side, I think you met all of our new staff, and we have some competitions out there for seasonal positions as well right now. In planning, development, engineering, I think you had a pretty good update on that department. One of the key things is we're still fielding heavy call on permits and planning, so we know that there's some development to still occur. So we expect that to carry on. You had a great update on source protection activities, and just note that our floodplain mapping is moving forward as well. We actually had an item slated for this meeting, but we had to pull it at the last moment just due to a peer review issue that was related to a gentleman that was actually peer reviewing had a bit of an accident. So that just caused us to pull that back, and we'll do that in April instead. Stewardship and conservation lands, you heard some other great work that we're doing, but we're moving forward with implementation of our lake management plans through agricultural projects and through a Bring Back the Fish project. We were successful, I believe that was the Environmental Damages Fund for $75,000, and OMAFRA was a significant grant as well. So we're happy that that work is going on, and we're leveraging resources as well with some of the tree planting that we're doing. And a keynote is that we're planning on meeting our 21,000 tree target that is in line with our stewardship strategy that was just approved by the board, I believe last year or the year before that. The Talking Forest you heard about, Story Walk is one that is extremely popular. I was out on the conservation area trails last month, and everyone was very excited about it. So it continues to be a draw, and so we're looking at working with the public library to continue on that series. And conservation lands are extremely popular, and that seems to be an ongoing trend that we're experiencing. So that's tremendous. I'll move to watershed management, integrated watershed management. And one of the key things that we're doing right now is we recognize that in a lot of ways, we're the best kept secret in terms of what we do and the monitoring that is being done to help people out and to inform decision making. So there's been a really big focus on data management and making that accessible. So that's what we've been working on. You see a bit of a dashboard, and so this is something that we're experimenting with to be able to post on our website that allows for users to actually work with the data a little bit. And so that's something that we see as important to convey. And at that point, people can use that information whichever way they're interested in. We did initiate a flood patrol for a minor flood, I'll call it. It was part of the spring freshet. Didn't affect any major systems. It was some minor systems that overtopped their banks. And Mariposa Brook got close, but at the same time, that has a lot of capacity in it. So. The other key thing I'll note is that the IWM team is working on a environmental monitoring strategy to plan for the future and make sure that we're meeting our needs and some of the needs of our community. So you can look forward to that in future board reports. And that is a summary of my report, Mr. Chair. And certainly myself or any of the department heads would be willing to answer any questions.
Sure, thank you. See if there's any questions for Mark on the CAO's report. Deborah, go ahead.
Thank you. I was looking on the website to see if the Bring Back the Fish project was listed as, one of the options for the landowner funding, and I don't see it listed. Is it just because it's new and it's still yet to be put on the site?
Yep, it is very new, and what I'll do is Christy Virgo, her department is very integrated into that particular program, so I'll let her talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's a new program that doesn't actually launch until April 1st of this year.
Okay.
So it will be, and it's a very targeted program specifically for fish habitat on urban streams within the city of Kawartha Lakes.
Yeah, it's just Kawartha. I was looking under the Kawartha Water Fund area,
yeah,
and I just didn't, I just didn't see it listed in the landowner grant. So I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, because it's a bit of a different program. Some of the administration pieces around that program is different, so it won't be listed as part of the Kawartha Water Fund landowner grant. It's a far more targeted piece, and we will be reaching out to targeted landowners within the area to
Oh, I see.
identify
Okay.
those projects. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And
welcome.
congratulations. That's a wonderful opportunity.
It was a multi-department effort to get that grant. So
That's
yeah, we're
huge.
very proud.
And it'll be great for the people that have the privilege of participating in it.
Well, just as a follow-up, you're welcome. The city of Kawartha Lakes got fined $125,000 and we contributed to that environmental damages fund. So it's nice to see a big chunk of it coming back into the region. So you're welcome for that contribution and great work for getting a grant on it. Any further questions on the CAO's update report? Okay, Angus, will you move that report be received?
Yes, gladly. I'll move it. Thank you.
Thank you. Second by Ron Hooper. Thank you. Any further questions? Anyone opposed to that motion? That motion is passed. Thank you. Correspondence, Mark. I don't know. Is there anything you want to highlight? There's a lot of correspondence here. We're not going to ask you to go through all the correspondence, and nor do we want you to. But is there anything you want to just highlight that you want to bring to our attention quickly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll mention a couple of items. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the board. There was a lot of comments, as you can see, on some of the legislation that is being kind of enhanced or revised as time goes on. So those comments are provided for your information. And we're going to include Conservation Ontario minutes as a matter of practice just going forward. I don't believe they're included before, but I think it's good information for you to have. The other thing that I'll just touch on is the very last item of correspondence is related to a Canada Water Agency, which is an interesting endeavor that could change the landscape as we know it. So this is something that is being contemplated by the federal government. I believe they actually have a directive to create a Canada Water Agency, and there's a lot of discussion going on right now amongst each of the different provinces and in the federal networks, and that spreads into the local networks as well for what is that Canada Water Agency and what do they do. So this is very much an evolving standpoint, but we see that there could be some great synergies with the work that we do. So I think that's just a good highlight for us to keep aware of as we move forward into the future on this particular profile.
Great, thank you. Get a motion that the attached correspondence be received, please. Pat Dunn, or Pat, moved by Pat, second by Ron Windover. Thank you. Are there any questions on the correspondence for Mark? Seeing none. Anyone opposed to the motion to receive it? That motion is passed. Thank you. We'll move down to item 9, which is action items. Item 9.1 is our budget vote. We're going to get a recorded vote here from Melanie, but I just wonder if Mark is Wanda. Yeah, there she is. If Wanda, do you want to give us just a quick where we are in the process and how we got here? And we'll get Melanie to pipe in and we'll do a recorded vote when you're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to do that. For you, Mr. Chair, we bring forward to you today the resolution to approve the 2021 operating budget, operating levy, and the general benefiting levy. We started this process back in July, and we brought various stages of decision making forward to you in July, in September, October, November, and permission was granted to us to circulate the budget in January. From there, the municipalities all received the document January 29th. And we're aware right now at this point that the region of Durham and the city of Kawartha Lakes have both included us in their 2021 budgets. And as well, the city of Kawartha Lakes has approved the special project for Lake Dalrymple. So that's very exciting for us as well. Operating levy increase is 2.5%. The amount is $39,300. The weighted vote is determined by the apportionment percentages, with the caveat that no municipality can have more than 50%. So from that, 51% of the vote present carries the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions. Happy to.
Was there any comments back from any municipalities when it was circulated?
None whatsoever, sir.
Okay, well, that's a good start. Anybody have any questions on the budget or the process for Wanda before we do the vote? Okay, I'll turn it over. Thanks, Wanda. I'll turn it over to you, Melanie, if you want to do what you need to do. And are you looking for a verbal yay or a nay? Is that what you're looking for as you call out each name?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
Perfect.
through you, the directors you'll be called upon, we're going to go alphabetically by surname with yourself going last, Mr. Chair. When called upon, please state yes, no, or abstain. I'm just going to share my screen here so you can all follow along. Okay. So to begin, I will call upon Director Pat Dunn. Your vote, please.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And next, Director Ron Hooper, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Deborah Kiesebrink, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Angus Ross, your vote, please.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Director Seymour Fagan, your vote, please.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Director Ted Smith, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Ron Windover, your vote, please.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. And lastly, our chair, Chair Letham, your vote, please.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we do have Director Morris absent, but the remainder are all in favor. So the 2021 budget is approved.
Okay, so does that covers the recommended resolution in the book, right? That's the resolution we just passed by a recorded vote, correct?
Oh.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, my apologies. I just realized that my screen didn't actually share. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We all
But
have
you
it
can
in front of us,
see
so-
there now.
Okay, we got it. We're good. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into thanks, Melanie. We'll move into item 9.2, the asset management plan grant application. And I think John Lucas from accounting is going to join us and give us an overview on the application.
It says the host, through you, Mr. Chair, the host has stopped my video recording, so I'm just waiting for the host to allow it.
Okay.
Perfect. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this agenda item today. I'm just going to do a brief summary of the action item. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities currently has a promising grant available for municipal asset management plans. The grant is providing up to 80% support in eligible expenditures. Through our strategic plan from 2017 to 2021, one of our key items under optimizing service was to create and implement an asset management plan. Unfortunately, the pandemic arose last year and this had put our plans on a brief halt. However, we are looking to reinstate this plan now that we have found a available option for a grant that can help us support it. Through early discussions with a reputable Canadian company, we estimate that our early acquisition cost to apply for this grant would be approximately $41,000. Looking at a net cost for Kawartha Conservation, this would surmount to approximately $8,200, in which we do have adequate funding available in the budget. The two main items that we are looking to put in this grant application are one, a capital asset management software. This would be a cloud-based and collaborative tool that would allow all of our users in the organization to partake in asset management plans. And the second main component that ties into this would be to bring forward an asset management plan to the board of directors. So today, and to summarize, we're looking for a resolution that would provide support for Kawartha Conservation to apply for this grant with FCM.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Jonathan on the grant? I'll ask the first one, Jonathan. Do we have money in the budget for this if we don't get the grant? Will we be proceeding with an asset management plan or will we do that in the future?
We would push this off into 2022. We do have funds available for a limited amount. We can start the process this year. Most likely we'd look at getting into the software, implementing that. We do have funds for that as far as the bigger picture, bring a financial strategy and a long-term forecast. We would build that into most likely the 2022 budget.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions for Jonathan? Okay, did a good job. You're off the hook. Look at that. We have a resolution. Does everybody have the resolution? I don't really want to read it all, but is everybody clear on it, or do you need me to read it for clarification? We're good? Okay. Bottom line, that Kawartha Conservation commits $8,200 from its budget toward the cost of this initiative if we get the grant. You need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Ron Hooper, seconded by Kathleen Seymour Fagan. Any other final questions? Is anyone opposed to that motion? That motion is passed. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.3 is Planning Act amendments, ministerial zoning orders. Mr. Warren is going to come back and join us. Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief as always. It's a rather, this issue is rather a moving target right now, and it has received some press, certainly in the Pickering area and through the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. It really deals with the Provincial Bill 257, which contains a proposal to amend the Planning Act, particularly regarding minister zoning orders. And it's really a situation where minister zoning orders can supersede pretty much any local decision-making and even the provincial policy statement itself. And of course, at this point, it's up for, there's debate. As I say, it's a bill. It hasn't been passed by any means, but it does include some provisions with minister zoning orders, and that there's no public notice and there's no appeal provisions in what's being proposed so far. Sometimes that can work for a conservation authority or a municipality, but sometimes it can also work against them. And so it can be quite it can be quite an issue. Of the one that was on the news was, of course, development within a wetland in Pickering for, I think it was Amazon doing a facility there. At this point, our staff, we have not had the opportunity to discuss this with either our cohorts at other conservation authorities or with our municipal partners, and to see if they've had any concerns. I'm particularly interested in talking with our municipal partners to see, are there any concerns within our jurisdiction? Are there any spots where there might be an issue that that we don't know about within our watershed? And pardon my cat. One of the key considerations is that we want the minister to continue to be bound, if possible, to making decisions that are consistent in the public interest, that seek good planning, just as it's been articulated in the provincial policy statement 2020, and for the most part, the way it's been since the 1980s. And I think with that, I'll just leave it at that. It's just for information at this point, and so that you're aware of the situation.
So you're just going to do some further, I'm struggling with the motion, what you're actually asking of the board. You're just going to do some further looking into it, some talk with other municipalities and such and other conservation authorities, and at some point you'll get some recommendations and come back to the board? Is that the gist of it?
That is part of it. The problem is it's on the, I'm just trying to go through the report here, and it's because it's on the environmental registry posting. I'm trying to find what the date is. Comments are due by April 3rd.
Okay.
Yep. And Ron, if you remember, we had suggested that the analysis commentary be included and endorsed as part of this, so that we could forward that on to the minister as part of the comments on the registry.
That's correct. Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Deborah, you had a question? Go ahead.
Oh, that's just what I was going to say, that the recommended resolution, it's more than research. It's saying that the commentary and the staff report will be endorsed and submitted. So.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions, any further questions for Ron on that report? We do have a recommended resolution. Everybody clear on that, or do you need me to? Okay, we're good. Does somebody want to move it? And a move by Ted Smith, second by Ron Windover. Any further comments or questions? Anyone opposed to the motion? That motion passes. Okay, thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's it for our action items. New business, item 10. We have a request from Ron Windover. You wanted to bring up a comment on per diems and mileage, Ron. Did you want to bring that up at this board meeting?
Yes, I would, because I would, I was going, and I do come, I come up to the municipal office to attend the meetings here. And I was also coming up to get my agendas. So it is quite a little distance to come to do either one of those. Now, I did receive an agenda this time by Pure Later, so that did help things. So, but I didn't get it until last night. So I came up and got one from the council, from the municipal office anyway. So I just think, well, it's just a lot of mileage, that's all. And I would like to get that back into the story, to the swing of things, that's all.
Are you getting mileage from the Conservation Authority for your trips? I thought most board members were, and obviously not if we're on Zoom, but I think the mileage was being paid by the Conservation Authorities, except for Kawartha Lakes, where we have it included in our council expenses. Am I correct?
No, I never got reimbursed for nothing.
Mark, do you want to comment on that? I think the director's eligible for mileage, isn't he?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We have been working with Director Windover on this. I know per diems came up. Per diems currently are not covered as per our budget discussions. Mileage has been certainly in the pandemic. I think part of that is the administration and behind that. So there's a need to submit the mileage expenses that used to occur when we had meetings in person. There was a sheet that identified what the mileage is. So that is currently missing right now. So my suggestion would be we'll connect with Director Windover again on this. I know I mentioned that the mileage is something that could be covered. That's related to business that we do, slightly outside of the box in terms of what our administrative bylaws constitute. Is usually travel to the office for the meetings, but I can see that travel to the council chambers or to the municipal office makes a lot of sense. So I think it's related back to the just the administration behind the claiming of the mileage. So we'll need to work with you, Ron, on that just to get those the mileage recorded and know what we have to reimburse you for.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Ron, your municipality won't reimburse you for mileage for business on a committee if you're going to the township offices and back to pick up an agenda. Your municipality, you can't claim that through your municipality?
No, they don't. No, it's got to come to they don't for that. No.
Okay. Well, Mark, maybe you can, if you'll work with Ron on figuring out how to make that work, then I think we're good.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Are you good with that, Ron? Are you okay? You'll work.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah.
Issue. Thank you. 11 is updates from board members. Does anybody on the board have anything they want to update the rest of the board on? Seeing none. We don't have a closed session, and that's it. And all I need is a motion to adjourn, please. Ron Windover, seconded by Deborah. Anyone opposed to adjourning? I didn't think so. Have a great evening, and thank you, folks. That motion is passed. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.
Bye.